Happy Monday. Today is November the 9th, 2020. Monday Money Matters is in full effect. I hope everyone is doing well and had a great weekend. Today we are going to talk about credit card debt. I'm sure a lot of you out there have it. I'm sure a lot of you out there have too much of it. And I'm sure, well, what I just accidentally hit something. Sorry about that. Okay. So hopefully we're still here. Um, so again, credit card debt. I'm sure a lot of you have it. A lot of you probably have too much of it. And sometimes it becomes overwhelming. Sometimes it feels like we are never getting it paid down. And of course, because of interest and everything else, it can sometimes be a never ending cycle. So, what happens if you are drowning in credit card debt? What happens if you're just paying and paying and you're not seeing any dent or any reduction or any balances decreasing as fast as you would like? It can be easy to get overextended in credit card debt. One minute you are managing well, you are paying on time, you're improving your credit all along. And then before you know it, credit card companies, they're increasing limits, they're providing and offering additional accounts, and not even really following up to see if the capacity or if the earning potential is still there in order to continue the ability to repay the amounts. And then, of course, as Murphy Law states, anything that can happen will. Throw in unexpected expenses, emergency events, financial crisis, and bam, 2020 pandemic, here we are. We're right in the midst of it and have been for quite some time. So now you've lost a job or your wages have been drastically decreased. Paying for essentials is hard enough on reduced income, let alone trying to pay credit card debt or other consumer debt. As you know, missing payments or paying less than the minimum balance, it basically does the opposite effect. It might as well not pay anything. Um, and of course, it can ruin your credit in a really short period of time, just with no pays or slow pays. But I also do realize, and a lot of the counselors here as well realize at Financial Pathways of Piedmont, that when priorities take place, survival mode kicks in. Not everyone is going to be taken care of. Not everyone is necessarily going to be paid. But what are some things that you can do um, to try and at least do something? First and foremost, always call your creditor, service provider, etc., that you are having difficulty in paying. Even if you know that you've been paying on time, but now all of a sudden, next month's payment, you see that you are not going to be able to pay on time or pay the right amount, you need to contact your creditor or your service provider to let them know. A lot of places, creditors, companies, organizations, service providers may have options available to you in the event of a financial crisis. Obviously, through the pandemic, there were lots of concessions that were put into place. Although I know a lot of those have now ended, still on a case by case basis, it doesn't hurt to call because you don't know unless you ask. This part right here is probably the number one option that I should have started with, but rework your budget. If you are in a financial crisis, you need to have a crisis budget. You need to rework your budget. You need to drastically decrease any non essentials. It doesn't have to be forever, it just needs to be while you are able to get your head back above water. A crisis budget, implement that crisis budget, cut out non essentials, really assess what you have to have versus what you can live without for a short period of time at least. Call Financial Pathways of the Piedmont. Sometimes talking to someone that is outside of your immediate need and can look at your situation objectively. We're going to make sure, first and foremost, we're going to go over a very comprehensive budget just to make sure that we've encompassed everything, because a lot of times clients will forget certain things, and we want to make sure you remember everything. We may also be able to assist you in prioritizing that budget, although you are the one that has to make those decisions and make those payments. We can at least provide guidance, suggestions, consequences, pro and against. If if you don't do this, what's going to happen? If you don't do this, what's going to happen? To kind of give you the consequences, good, bad, or the ugly. A debt management plan could possibly be an option. Now, I understand that if income has already been decreased, you may not have the capacity to afford or manage a debt management plan, but sometimes it is an option. And sometimes when you see what those numbers look like on paper, it may be worth it to be able to try and make the necessary changes in your budget to afford for a debt management plan. So let me tell you what a debt management plan is not. It is not a consolidation loan. A lot of times we get calls from people wanting to get a consolidation loan. They're wanting to consolidate their debt. They're wanting to do things to get out of debt, pay down debt, pay off debt, whether it's current debt, old debt, charge-offs, etc. So a debt management plan is not that. A consolidation loan is essentially taking out another debt or another loan to pay off your current debt or current loans. Typically, you are not going to be in a position to do that if you are in a crisis or if you've had um, a reduction in income and it has impacted your credit. To approve or be approved for a consolidation loan, you still have to have the credit worthiness and the income to support and make those payments for that consolidation loan. So if you are already struggling to pay the individual payments of the creditors that you currently have, chances are, even if you've wrapped them up in another loan, yes, potentially with a lower interest rate could help, but you still have to qualify for that. So that still may be an issue with regards to obtaining a consolidation loan and may not always be the best option. So a debt management plan is essentially an agreement between a credit counseling agency such as Financial Pathways of the Piedmont and creditors, unsecured creditors, credit card companies, personal loans, some medical collections, old collections, things of that nature, things that are not secured, so not car payments, not a mortgage, usually not student loan debt, maybe private student loan debt, but not federal student loan debt. But essentially, it's going to be your consumer debt. And what happens is the credit card companies agree that if your clients are eligible and able to go on to a debt management plan, that they have allowed certain concessions with their accounts in order to make the payments more affordable. So that may include reducing the interest rate, obviously, first and foremost, because then that means more is going to the principal, less is going to interest. So that's why you're able to pay down the debt quicker. They may waive fees, late fees. They may stop those fees once you have enrolled in a debt management plan. Once you're in a debt management plan, a lot of times creditors will re-age your account so that now you are current versus looking like you are in default or behind. So that helps on your credit report that now the account has been re-aged to current status instead of delinquency status. And the other part is when I mentioned the budget, if you meet with a counselor here at Financial Pathways of the Piedmont, the budget is the most important tool that we work with a client, because that's going to tell us what's going to be affordable or not. Now, ultimately, it is still the client's option, their decision into enroll in a debt management plan, but we want to also make sure that you are going to be successful in completing your debt management plan. And creditors even want to make sure you have a surplus income in your budget. They want to also know, because they know that unexpected things are going to arise. And a debt management plan can last as long as 5 years. It can be anywhere from 36 to 60 months. So that's still a long time, especially if you are in a potential crisis, you are going through an uncertainty period of time, you're unsure what the level of income will be through that period of time. So even though a debt management plan can be helpful, that still is a long period of time to hopefully agree to be able to withstand that payment plan for that length of time. Then, if you are eligible for that debt management plan, and if you do agree to it, there's certain agreements, authorizations. Of course, we have to have credit card statements and things of that nature. Your counselor is going to input all this data into our system. We'll be able to tell you if all of these accounts are approved by the creditor, because the creditor also has to approve it. Then we will be able to tell you what your payment amount will be for each of those credit accounts, including what our monthly counseling, or excuse me, our monthly servicing fee. And then we put that all together as one payment. And then that is where I guess the term consolidation sometimes gets misconstrued, is because it is added together as one lump sum. But when we take the payments, we are dispersing them to each of the creditors individually. And then throughout the month, you have access to monitor your payments, monitor your balances coming down, monitoring the interest rate changing, and all of that in order to continue through this debt management program. Now, with a debt management plan, it does not, and it's not supposed to affect your credit score per se. However, most creditors that are agreeing to put you on a debt management plan will indicate on your credit report that those accounts are currently enrolled in a debt management plan. So that does one of two things. Depending on what other creditors may look at, they may think that that's either a negative, or they may think, hey, that's positive because they are at least managing their debt. They are still taking care of their obligations, but they're just having to do it in a more affordable way. Some creditors may think that it's a negative step altogether. However, in most situations, if a client is on a debt management plan, we would assume that the goal is to pay down and pay off debt. So the likelihood of applying for more debt probably is not going to happen. Unless, of course, there's a situation where, we do understand that someone may need to obtain a car for transportation issues, or um, home equity, or something like that. So sometimes there are some cases or situations where a client may need to access or apply for additional credit while on a debt management plan. And depending on who they're applying that with, they may require a payment history or some type of documentation indicating what you're currently enrolled in with your current creditors. So a debt management plan can be helpful. I have seen some really good debt management plans where they've saved hundreds of dollars a month. Sometimes it's just the combination and the perfect storm, if you will, of the right creditors, um, the right payment amounts, the right mix of creditors. Normally, it's not going to be as beneficial if you have just one creditor versus several. But again, we won't know until the counselors input all of your creditor data to find out. Um, because a DMP, like I said, is a long-term plan, we do want to make sure that you are successful. So as things transpire over time, if you do uh, find yourself in another financial hardship or crisis, your counselor should always be the first person that you contact. There may be some revisions we can make with a debt management plan that you're currently on. Depending how long you've already been on the plan, it may be that some debt has been paid down enough to where it can be reassessed, and it may adjust your payments a little bit further. But again, we have to uh, know what's going on with you so that we can advise accordingly. So that's with any of our services. If you've ever made contact or had any type of appointment or education, financial counseling session with Financial Pathways of the Piedmont, anytime something new has come up, we are always here as your first financial health first responder, and hope that you will always contact us as the need arises, good or bad. Potential consequences of not paying your debt. Obviously, we know no pays, slow pays will kill. I'm talking chop, karate chop, cut down your credit score quickly. It may take a long time to build up credit, but it takes no time at all to really destroy it. And remember, that's after you've had 30-day lates, after you haven't made payments within 30 days. And it has to be, the minimum payment. Making the minimum payment is much better than not paying nothing at all. You may be paying it for a while and it may take you longer to pay it down. But paying the minimum payment is always better than not paying anything at all, because even though you pay a portion, that's still not the obligatory amount. So even though you may have paid half, when it comes time to report that on your credit report, they're still going to ding you for that because that was not the um, full amount that was required per your terms and agreement. Judgments, which is a legal action, that's basically essentially a lawsuit from a creditor trying to collect the amount that you owe them by taking you to court. Now, obviously, if you don't have the funds, then you don't have the funds, but you will end up with a judgment on your credit report, which is a public record that was filed in your county courthouse. In some states, but not in North Carolina, at least with regards to credit card debt, it can lead to wage garnishment. However, in North Carolina, there can be potential wage garnishment to city, state, or of course, federal debt. I've seen wages garnished and tax refunds intercepted over ambulance bills, medical bills stemming from Forsyth County EMS. Because that is considered a county debt. And then, of course, you'll always get the collection calls and collection letters. Now, at some point in time, even though you may not be able to address any of these issues while you're going through the crisis, it may be that at some point in time after you have kind of rebounded a little bit, or you're in a better position to tackle some of these old debts that maybe now have been charged off or in collections, negative items remain on your credit report for a minimum of at least 7 years. So you may then still have the opportunity at some point in time to make good on a debt. And it could be potentially with, settlements, negotiations to pay less, et cetera. Sometimes the older the debt is, the more they may be willing to forgive, but just also remember that some debts, any forgiven balances can also be issued as income being filed at tax time through a 1099. And what I'll do is next week on Monday Matters, I'm going to go more into debt settlement, companies, some of the repercussions for that, things to look for, things that you can do on your own, and just other tidbits of information to help you if your debt has since been charged off and in collection status, and kind of how to address those issues at that time. So I hope this brief Monday Money Matters on credit card debt and the explanation of a debt management plan was helpful. Again, if you are interested in meeting with a counselor regarding a debt management plan, please give us a call at 336-896-1191. You can also send us an email, info@financialpaths.org. You can also go to our website, financialpaths.org, and if you go to resources, there is a link of our appointment paperwork, and it is a fillable document. And so if you are interested in meeting with a counselor and you want to go ahead and complete all of your documents, you want to save that on your computer, desktop, or phone, and then you can also email that in to info@financialpaths.org, and we will have Michelle contact you to schedule an appointment. So thank you very much again for tuning in to this week's Monday Money Matters. I hope you all have a great week and hope you have a successful money management week. Thank you.